Earl K Sneed, as we continue to talk about the Dallas Mavericks of the 1980s, joined here on RetroMavs.com by one of the greatest Mavericks of all time, if you don't mind me saying so, Derek Harper, of course. Uh, when you got drafted by the Mavericks, coming out of the University of Illinois,
Shocked.
11th pick in the 1983 draft, what exactly were you thinking coming to this young expansion team, this young expansion franchise in the city of Dallas?
To be honest with you, I had mixed emotions. Obviously you're excited about the opportunity to be drafted into the NBA as a first-round pick. Didn't know what to expect. This was one of the few teams that I didn't know a lot about, it being an expansion situation. So, again, I had mixed emotions. I knew that if I didn't get drafted by Dallas, I was going to go to New York 12. It was between Darrell Walker and myself. So I was kind of leaning towards going to New York, to be honest with you, to get a taste of the big city and all the things that go along with being drafted there. But after getting here, my agent and I, meeting Don Carter, meeting Norm Sanju, just meeting the newness and the excitement that this franchise had, I became excited right away.
I even said this to Ro Blackman. It seemed like hit or miss in the draft, but it seems like the organization was really hitting on the young talent that they were bringing in.
Well, and that was the exciting part. I knew Mark Aguirre, I knew Rolando Blackman. I had played against those guys in college, so I knew what was here, so to speak. But you still don't know what to expect. And I think as a kid, when you start thinking about being drafted, you want to be drafted by the Lakers, by the Knicks, popular basketball team, by the Celtics, teams that you grew up watching and can relate to a little bit. And I think from that standpoint, you sort of, again, wonder what the experience is going to be like with the new franchise in the Dallas Mavericks. And, 20, 30 years later, I'm really glad that I was drafted by the Mavericks because I was the start of something real special here.
And you had some special seasons also. We talk about 10 of your first 10 seasons were with the Mavericks, 11 of your 16 seasons overall. But you averaged 15 and 6 pretty much for those first 10 seasons. What exactly did you try to bring into the organization from running the point guard?
Consistency more than anything. I think when you're running the point, you're running the show, so to speak. I think you have to do whatever is necessary for your team. But more importantly, I think you have to understand when to go and when to slow as a point guard. And I was sort of a 1-2 coming out of college. So it took some seasoning and some grooming for me to develop into the kind of point guard that I wanted to be. I played behind Brad Davis early in my career, something I think would really helped my career because, even though I think a lot of people, I used to go home, I'll tell this quick story, and my buddies used to say, how do you let a guy like Brad Davis play in front of you? And I'm like, if you only knew how much savvy, how much experience this guy has, you would understand. And playing behind him, I was able to sort of sit and learn the game, learn the point guard position, because I think at that particular time, early in my career, Brad was a better point guard than I was. I may have been a better talent, but I think Brad was clearly a better point guard for what the Mavericks wanted to do under Coach Mata's system. And I learned a lot from him, and I grew from there. And, things worked out, to say the least.
We talked with Coach Carlisle, and he talked about playing for the Celtics. He came into Dallas, and Brad Davis hit him with a backdoor cut and scored. It was a perfectly drawn-up play by Dick Mata. And he went back to the huddle, and Red Auerbach was like, he got you, didn't he? What'd you learn from a guy like Brad Davis? What'd you learn from some of the other guys that were here in the organization, Ro Blackman, Mark Aguirre, and even Dick Mata?
Well, I'll start with Coach Mata because Coach Mata was sort of a guy that not only taught me a lot about the game, but he helped me in life as well. Not having a father growing up, being a little bit arrogant, being a little bit cocky coming into the league as a young player, there was a lot for me to learn. Like I said, not only as a player, but as a person too. And Dick sort of did thing as a father figure for young guys that came into the Mavericks organization. And he just taught me, to remove myself, number one, because basketball as a team, as a whole, isn't about one individual. It's about everybody collectively. And surely when you come into the league, you want to establish yourself as quickly as you can. And that's what my mindset was. So he changed my whole thought process and taught me how to be a young man. And as a result, I think I improved even as a player as well. You talk about Brad getting Rick Carlisle. That's not the only guy that Brad got going back door. He got me a couple of times until I caught on to it. But that was his thing, And again, it goes back to his savvy, his intellect as a player, not able to get around a lot of guys with his dribble and with his speed and quickness, but able to beat guys in a different, cunning way. Just really understood the game. I'll tell you another story. Mike Fratello and Dick Motta used to bet whether or not we would get backdoor cuts. And you might want to edit some of this, but I'm going to tell you just how it was. We got so many layups, like Brad going backdoor on guys, until Dick had so much confidence in us having the ability to do that, he would go and challenge other coaches to stop it, and none of them could stop it. And I'll never forget going backdoor against Doc Rivers, getting a layup against the Hawks, and Dick meeting Mike Fratello halfway saying, okay, you owe me. And I realized after seeing it again that that's what it was all about, that they had bet that we wouldn't get backdoor layups. So, it was a great offense for the talent that was on that particular team at that particular time. You talk about Rowe, you talk about Mark, and the thing that I remember about both of those guys, other than them being the best talent that we had on our team at the time, is their work ethic. I don't know what guys do now to prepare themselves for NBA seasons, but when I was in the league early in my career, we actually worked to get better. I mean, we spent hours and hours in the gym, hours and hours on the track, preparing ourselves, conditioning ourselves to be prepared for the season. Rowe, I mean, that's my guy because I sort of followed Rolando's lead. And you're talking about a guy, you hear guys say, I shot 400 shots. Rowe took it overboard. He made 500 and 600 shots. And this is nothing that I'm making up. This is true. The guy would he would have a shot log on the wall at Home Interiors where we used to practice and count every single drill that we went through. You're talking about intense. And I think the thing that I got out of that is that we were doing things game speed. And once you get to the game, I think when you practice the way he used to practice and prepare, the way Rolando used to prepare, the game became second nature for you. So I thank him for that all the time because, when you come into the league, you don't know how to work and prepare yourself for the NBA. So it was an honor to work around all of those guys.
Caught you on NBA TV for a great roundtable with yourself, Roe Blackman, Mark Aguirre, Sam Perkins. Really talked about some of the struggles of the 1980s and then getting to that seventh game against the Lakers in 1988 in the Western Conference Finals, coming up a little bit short. But how would you sum up that whole decade from the lows to the early years and then also getting that close to potentially competing for NBA Finals?
Well, first of all, they bring back some of my greatest basketball memories. I won a high school championship, had a lot of success in college as an All-American. But, I think when you reach the level of the NBA, that's as high as you can go, obviously. And, thinking about those times, I feel like there were more highs for me than lows because I made the playoffs my first, 6, 7, 8 years. I was in the playoffs, so I didn't experience a lot of lows until later in my career here with the Mavericks. But with the exception of the Lakers, we would have been in the finals every single year. That was the one team that was a nemesis for our basketball team. We couldn't get past that Hall of Fame group of guys, but I think if you go and interview those guys and talk to those guys, if there's any way of putting fear in a team, I think we found a way to do that in spite of not being able to overcome them. You think about Kareem, Magic, Worthy, Byron Scott. How many of those guys won't be in the Hall of Fame? Most of those guys will be in the Hall of Fame. Most of them have their jersey retired. So, when I think back on it, I'm not ashamed of the fact that we weren't able to get by the Lakers. Plain and simple, I respect them, and I really feel like that you have to give them credit, that they were probably the better team at that particular time. They had more been there and done that experience than we did. So you come up short. But, you think about Roy Tarpley, a guy that I don't think people really remember how great he was as a talent. You talked about the round table. We actually talked about that, and I think that was the low point for me, Earl, as far as experiencing down times, because here you see a guy with all the talent in the world, but not able to reach his full potential because of a disease. And, a drug addiction is a serious addiction. I don't think people realize that it can be anybody. I don't think anybody is removed from being in that situation. And, man, if you only knew how much we begged and pleaded with Roy and worked with Roy, trying to keep him on a straight and narrow, you wouldn't believe the time that we put in as teammates trying to do that.